Good morning, champions. Today is Monday, April 13th, 2020. Today is a geology lesson in which we will be reading about the rock towns of Cappadocia. Your objective for today is scholars will draw models of hoodoos, Moai, and a town that is carved out of rock. So as I read through today's chapter, pay close attention to the terms hoodoo, Moai, and think about how Cappadocia is formed from people carving their town out of rocks. Okay, so this is in our Unit 6 Geology Reader, The Changing Earth. We are opening up to our enrichment pages. They're the last 3 chapters. This first enrichment chapter is the Rock Towns of Cappadocia. It is found on page 90 of our reader. So listen as I read along. The Rock Towns of Cappadocia. Few houses are as old or as unusual as those in Cappadocia, Turkey. The houses have rock walls, rock floors, and rock ceilings. Their doors and windows are simply openings in rock. Some houses have tall, pointed rock towers rising from their rock roofs. Others have hidden rooms, secret passageways, and tunnels that lead deep underground. Everything is made of rock. Cappadocia is a region of Turkey found in the west-central part of the country. Its caves, like rock houses, are famous, and there are thousands of them. The houses are clustered into rock villages and towns. People have been carving and living in these houses for more than 2,000 years. Volcanoes, however, laid the original foundations. So here on page 91, we have a picture of the rock towers, and you can see homes scattered all throughout this mountain, carved into the mountainside. Page 92, Eruptions and Erosion. Mount Ercirius looms on the horizon near Cappadocia's rock towns. It is an active volcano and the highest mountain in this part of Turkey. Ercirius's rocky peak is 12,848 feet high. In winter, it is often dusted with snow. Only minor eruptions have shaken Ercirius in recorded history. At times in the distant past, however, Ercirius and other volcanoes near it were much more active. During one or more major eruptions, these volcanoes blasted out enormous amounts of ash. The volcanic ash rained down on the surrounding countryside. It collected in some areas to form large, thick deposits. Over time, the volcanic ash solidified. It hardened into a type of volcanic rock geologists call tuff. In parts of what is now Cappadocia, layers of tuff formed that were hundreds of feet thick. Then weathering and erosion went to work. Wind and water slowly carved the tuff into ridges, mounds, and sharp pinnacles. The tallest of these slender, soaring rock formations are called hoodoos. Some rise more than 100 feet above the Cappadocian landscape. Some people call hoodoos fairy chimneys because they look like something you might read about in a fairy tale. Hoodoos around the world. You can find hoodoos on almost every continent. Most are formed from sedimentary rock rather than volcanic tuff. All of them, though, are the product of weathering and erosion. Bryce Canyon in the western United States has an abundance of hoodoos. Wind, rain, and ice wedging have carved them out of sedimentary rock that is 40 to 60 million years old. Geologists and visitors have named some of Bryce Canyon's largest hoodoos. One of the most impressive is Thor's Hammer. So here's a picture of a hoodoo called Thor's Hammer in Bryce Canyon. And as I said, one of the 3 things you have to draw today is a picture of a hoodoo, a tall rock pillar formed from erosion. Okay. On to page 94. Carving out caves. No one knows who first carved into Cappadocia's rock formations to make living or hiding spaces. Creating a cave wasn't difficult. Tuff is quite soft before it is exposed to air. Scrape away the hard outer surface and the fresh rock can be cut easily with simple tools. The surface of newly carved rock hardens quickly in dry air. After that, it will keep its shape for hundreds of years. During the 300s, Cappadocia became a destination for many early Christians. It was a place where they felt safe and isolated from the rest of the world. These religious refugees expanded the existing caves into larger rock dwellings. They created rooms for eating and sleeping. They carved out stables for animals and storage areas for food. They cut staircases into hoodoos and formed high towers. The towers had windows that looked out onto the surrounding plains. From these high places, they could see trouble coming from a long way off. Blocks of dwellings grew into villages and then towns. The early Christian settlers expanded underground too. They dug into the underlying tuff, carving out living areas more than 5 stories deep. A maze of tunnels, staircases, and passageways connected different sections. There were even rock ventilation systems for bringing down fresh air from above ground. The underground excavations eventually grew into several dozen towns. They were large enough to shelter thousands of people. If invaders or any other kind of threat appeared, inhabitants of the rock towns above ground headed underground. By the 600s, Christian monks had built more elaborate rock dwellings. They built large monasteries in which to live. These monasteries had sleeping quarters, large kitchens, and cellars for stored food and drink. Each monastery had its own church. At first, the churches were simple and plain. Over time, they became more elaborate. By the 1000s and the 1100s, Cappadocian monks were building churches with high, arched ceilings and large altars. Artists decorated the walls and ceilings with beautiful paintings. Thanks to the region's dry climate, many of these works of art have survived for hundreds of years with little change. Preserving the past, page 96. In 1985, part of Cappadocia's Rocktown complex was made a World Heritage Site. World Heritage Sites are considered special places that are important to protect. The rock houses of Cappadocia are being carefully maintained to preserve their historical value. Tourists come from all over the world to visit these unique rock towns. Guides lead them through tunnels and passageways, as it is easy to get lost. Visitors can stay in rock houses that have been turned into small hotels. Imagine spending the night in a rock room carved by hand hundreds of years ago. One thing visitors discover is that there is no need for air conditioning or central heating. Houses made out of tuff stay cool in the summer and warm in winter. Many people walking the streets of Cappadocia's rock towns are not tourists. They live there, and the rock houses are their homes. The walls and floors are hundreds of years old, but the houses have running water, carpets on the floor, and curtains in the windows. When homeowners make changes, though, they sometimes get a surprise. Some have tried to make new rooms in their rock houses. They've started scraping the walls only to break through into old caves that have been undisturbed for hundreds of years. So, the second thing you need to draw is a town carved out of rock. So here on page 97, we have a picture of a hotel or what once was a town carved into the rock with all these different little rooms and things like that. So you can be as creative as you want to be in drawing your town. What kind of things do you think they'll have underground in these caves? Okay. Page 98, the Tuff Carvers of Easter Island. Easter Island is another place famous for structures carved out of tuff. Hundreds of giant statues dot the hills of the South Pacific island. The statues are called Moai. They are partial human figures with large heads, high cheekbones, and heavy brows. Except for differences in height, all the Maui on the island look very much the same. The Rapa Nui people, the native inhabitants of Easter Island, carved the Maui from tuff. The tuff came from the sides of a volcanic crater near Moanga Cheravaka, the island's largest volcano. To make the statues, Rapa Nui carvers used blocks of tuff cut from the crater walls. They used sharp stone tools made of basalt to cut and shape the softer rock. The carvers shaped Maui right in the wall of the crater. When the fronts were finished, they chipped the huge statues free from the crater wall. Then the Maui were moved to a final destination. Scientists are still debating how they think the Rapa Nui moved the Maui. However they did it, it was quite a task. The largest Maui weighs over 80 tons. The biggest mystery still surrounding the Maui is why the Rapa Nui carved them. Some people have suggested that the Maui were carved to honor chiefs or possibly ancient ancestors, but no one knows for sure. So, the third and final thing you need to draw for this chapter is a picture of a Maui, one of these carved statues from Easter Island. You'll be drawing a hoodoo, a Maui, and a town carved out of rock. And that will suffice for today's lesson on the rock towns of Cappadocia. Thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned as there will be a few more videos uploaded this week for math and science. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.